getting the clay from the bucket. If it's stuck in here, slammed, you may have to take one of these spoons or just your fingers and scooping it up. This is what we're going to make for the slab rolling process for our narrative tile. You don't need a huge chunk of clay. You can have something about like this that fits in your hand. And then we're going to have to wedge this because this was pugged clay that has been recycled, but slammed in here to keep it compressed. Make sure you put the lid on it whenever you're done. Then we're going to take it to our table and wedge it out. The 2 dowel rods, make sure that they are the same thickness. I tried to pull out the ones that are a different thickness so you're not confused by it. It doesn't matter the length as much, but the same thickness. You need your bat. Then over here are the rolling pins. It doesn't matter if it has a handle or not, and I'll show you why. But here I have some of those dowel rods down there that we don't need because, as you see, they're different thickness, and we are using these thinner ones. So don't get sneaky and grab those. When we're done, we're going to make sure that we clean off our rolling pins and put it back in there, shove stuff around. Take this to your table. Remember, you have to wedge the clay first. And when you're wedging, we're looking to compress the clay and get it mixed together, no air pockets, and getting any of the hard spots and soft spots to merge together. You can see where the air bubble has kind of popped out of there. You can do it one-handed or you can try the two-handed. Notice that I'm doing this on the rough side of the board because it will stick to the smooth side. So wedging it a few times, you can see where the moisture has come off on the board, but my clay is still pretty plastic. It is best to do this standing. We don't want to start with this chunk of clay. We want to manually flatten it, some with our hands, because if you get that process flattened out some before you start rolling it out, it's going to be a lot easier. Remember that what we're making for this narrative tile is a 4x4 square. So we don't need anything that's super long and wide because it only has to be 4 inches. Your 2 rolling pin or dowel rods, the purpose of this is we are trying to flatten out the clay to match the thickness of the dowel rod. When you're using the rolling pin, it's smart to have it toward the center and pressing a little bit to begin with in the middle, because if you roll it back like this and it sticks to it, you're making it harder on yourself than it needs to be. So if you start in the middle, press it a little bit to expand it, then flip it over and continue rolling that out. The goal of this is to, again, have the thickness of your slab match the thickness of the dowel rod. So you don't want it to have any waves in it. You may have to kind of flip it back and forth. What you also don't want to do is get it so wide, like say I was stretching it this direction, my rolling pin is not even touching the dowel rods, so that's pointless. Also, if I have it half and half, that's going to make it thinner on one side. You want it to be consistent. When you're making this, you want to check to see that your 4x4 space will fit in it. So you could take your template, and we can take one of these fettling knives in the back of the room, and you can check and see, oh yeah, so that looks like it's going to be good. Say, what if it wasn't? What if I was trying to get 2 off of this, because we are making 2 different designs. If this isn't enough right here, what I could do is take some of the excess that's over here that's not going to fit, cut that off, then blend it more up here. Smooth out that clay like this. And I know this is going to be too wide over there, so I'm cutting the edges, blending that together, take my dowel rod again and smooth this out. Carefully lift it up because it's not completely connected. I want to blend that clay together. Otherwise it'll split apart on you when you're trying to do anything with it. Continue pressing that out. And it's not stretching anymore. That is pretty much finished, but it's still kind of rough on this surface. So the other thing that I can do is so back here on this left side, I have these wooden potter's ribs. And you can get any of these, but ones that have the flat edge are going to be pretty good. You can clean it off, dampen it just a little bit. Then we'll go back to our slab and we can smooth that out. And if it has a little bit of moisture on it, it will help kind of scrape away any irregularities or blemishes or areas that are not as even or consistent. And that will help to give you a good surface area for this. And we have a tile stamper that we'll be using rather than just cutting this out, but I might be able to get 2 off of this one, but we have a tile stamp to put on that. Here is our tile press, and it's the 4x4. If you have enough space that you could fit 2, try for that. This doesn't have exactly enough, but I'm going to do my best to make it work. And we'll see. So I have this one, you press down, vertical. Be careful when you're peeling it up that you don't really stretch and distort it too bad. But you're looking for consistency in the thickness all the way around. I could set it to the side. I don't think I'm going to have quite enough. But again, there's not quite enough to make it match this, but I could take these extra sides and I can tear this off and kind of build it up in here and do that same process again. You want to make sure that as you're patching it up that you don't have the edges thinner than the inside, because you won't have a consistent slab. And the goal to this, or the goal of this, is to have a consistent slab. So I can rework this one, flip it over, do that whole process again. But when you have this tile, if it's still really sticky and plastic and we're not quite ready to do the next step on it, get some newspaper. And we don't need a huge piece of newspaper, so I can split and only have half of this. And I can have this piece of newspaper here, and then I could fold it over, and imagine that this were the other tile, then I could put it on this directly the way that I need it, and then I can fold this over. And then in my plastic bag, you want to also wrap this up to where maybe a little bit of air can get to it, because we want this to be closer to leather hard. We don't want it to be super squishy and plastic. But that's the first step before we apply this graffito slip. Then make sure you clean everything, put it up.